Okay, so I'm CammyG, and we're going to be continuing straight off where we left off when we built the trap tunnels, and we're going to be placing traps in it. So this is going to be an explanation of why we use which traps and why they go in certain places. So I'm not going to place it throughout the entire thing because that defeats the purpose. The point is I will be telling you and explaining where the traps should go and, you know, what type of use they have. And then hopefully you'll be able to, you know how to place them. If you want, you could build this entire thing exactly the way I built it and go back through and place them. You know, using the knowledge that I have explained. So first off, I will do wall traps. So the only wall traps I use are broadside traps for damage and wall launchers for pushing them around, basically. I know a lot of people use dynamos and wall darts. Now, I did a video a few weeks back or months back, I can't remember how long ago, showing that broadsides are just better. Dynamos are completely useless. Wall darts still have some good uses, but not enough for me to warrant using them. I just use broadside traps. And there are wall lights which are good for combining with floor launchers and wall launchers, but I personally don't use them. So basically, if we have an opening like this, you see where they come in, and we have, there's like a lot of space that they can be pushed back. This is the sort of area where we would use a wall launcher. At the front here, if Husk's going to be walking forward to get in, put a wall launcher here, it'll send them flying back out. And what this does is it kind of recycles the traps that we have here. Because we were putting damage traps up here, the wall launcher will send them back out and they'll get hit again. As well as that, here's a good example. If we had a wall launcher here, this would actually send stuff back far enough to go down here, at which point, they can't really do anything. They'd have to walk all the way around. They'd probably despawn down there just because of how far away it is from being able to get back up. So that's where we use wall launchers. There's another example where we'd use them as well. So at the very top, if you saw the past video, I said these are the places where we'd use wall launchers as well. So basically, I might as well put these down actually. Whoops. Wall launchers. So when stuff gets to this point, mainly smashers at this point, but high level husks as well if you're doing endurance. Smashers won't charge this because of the slant, so they'll walk through here, and what we can do then is use wall launchers to knock them into these side rooms, at which point, they'll get blasted with traps, absolutely. Traps everywhere, damage traps. And then once they come out, they might charge this one, I'm not sure to be honest, because the objective is wider. They might do that. So, you might want to get rid of that one, it depends. But then, if they get to this point, again, they'll get knocked into another room. Let's go back down here. I might as well put some of these wall launchers down. So in the entrance parts is where we'd use them. Like that. And, you could put wall launchers here as well to send them back to get hit by traps here again. But I think broadsides will be more effective here just because there's not that many traps to get hit by again if we put a wall launcher there. There's not much room. They're only going to be pushed back one block. I feel like it's kind of a waste. Another use for wall launchers is this setup here that we made to block the husks from going round. If we put wall launchers on these, and you can combine it with, a damage trap above, this will mean that if stuff does come over here to try and beat through, it'll get knocked back, which firstly will obviously stop it from being able to bash through as much, and secondly, it might then encourage them to actually go, you know what, I'm just going to go towards the objective, because that does actually happen. So those are the places where you'd use wall launchers. So now we'll move on to broadsides. Where you'd want to use these is when you have two walls opposite. Now, you can use them here. I know it seems like they're very far away, but the cannons fire so fast they will actually bounce around a few times in this. The best place to use them is when you have, like here, too wide area, One wide works as well, you know, that works perfectly as well. But a 2 wide area like this, you know, you have two gas traps, 2 broadside traps. As soon as an enemy comes in here, it's going to get hit by that, it's going to get hit by that, it's going to get hit by that, it's going to get hit by that. The cannons are going to go flying around, and the enemy's going to take massive, massive damage. So, you know, you'd put them here as well, same as that side. Then when you get to here, you know, you've got 2 walls opposite each other again, and you'd put them there. Here, you've got a wall there and a wall there, you know. You can do that. Honestly, because there's a 3 gap here, I would probably maybe go for a wall launcher there. But then again, once enemies come out of this, they might go, you know, sharply left and dodge this. So probably broadside best there. You might be able to get away with walls here, if you know, if you're using this to actually build your twine defense. You could probably get away with broadsides on these. I guess I will wait and see when the thing drops down again. The only other place I need to show where these will be placed, when you come up to this sort of thing, you definitely want them on the sides here. But when it comes to this bit, you know, a wall there, these ones, you don't necessarily have to put them on those. But, you know, you can do, definitely. It'll get massive damage. But when we get to the very top here, when we have these rooms, you're going to want to put broadside traps on all 3 of these. So basically what that does is when the, you know, the enemy gets here, it's going to get damaged by this one first off. They can stagger the enemy, which might cause the wall launcher to not work as well, but I still think it's worth using that. If you're worried about that and you do have wall darts, you know, you could put wall darts here instead. But if something gets knocked in here, it's going to get hit by 3 broadside traps. These 2 are going to ping across crazily, and it's, you know, it's just going to be beautiful, basically. So, you know, you do the same here. So that's the wall traps. I will go on to floor traps next. So the floor traps that I use, I do actually have wooden floor spikes made. I don't have the schematic anymore, but I crafted a bunch. So floor launcher, obviously this is for either flying them massively into the air to do damage, or with a slant, you know, here to knock them back. Then we have retractable floor spikes. Now obviously this is a damage trap. You want to put this in places where you know, you want to inflict massive, massive damage to an enemy. Tar pit trap, this is for slowing stuff down. You know, this is gonna literally just made for slowing stuff down, for stopping enemies, you know, stopping them to launch them with a wall launcher, that sort of thing. Where I put my tar pit traps, you could just as easily put wooden floor spikes. That will work, you know, just as well. I think tar pit traps are better just because it fully stops the enemy for a good 3 or 4 seconds, which most of the time just guarantees the wall launcher will hit. And yeah, those are the floor traps. So basically this is the only place we're going to put a floor launcher, really. Now when it comes to your endurance, you might actually go ahead and open this and put floor launchers on the floor, just because when you get to enemies that are power level 250, your power level 130 traps aren't going to do a lot of damage. Whereas if you launch them in the air and they come back down, they take a percentage of their health off. It doesn't take a fixed amount of damage. Say, like, you know, let's say a power level 130 smasher had 1,000 health. That's just an example. That's not what it actually is. But let's say it had that amount of health. If a wall launcher threw it up and it came back down and took damage, it might take, you know, half of its health off, which is 500 damage. For example, then a power level 250 smasher, let's say that has 20,000 health, you know. If a floor launcher launches it up in the air and it comes back down, it would then still take 50%, which is now 12,500 damage. So, you know, it's taking the same amount of percent of the enemy's health, but it's doing more damage to higher enemies because of the fact that it, you know, scales up with the health. So that's the reason why people for endurances use floor launchers, and that's what you'd want to use for your endurances. Mainly towards the edge when you get towards the objective, because the first trap tunnels will kill off, you know, your husks, your bees, your lobbers, your flingers, maybe the Husky Husks as well, and then what makes it through is like Blasters and Smashers. They get to this point, they still have, you know, a fair bit of their health left because they're such tanks. The floor launchers hopefully finish them off. But let's move on to the tar pit traps. So these are to slow stuff down. So obviously here where we have our wall launchers, we want to slow the enemies down so that the floor launchers will activate. We can put these ceilings back and, you know, launch them into the box. As well as that, we mainly just use tar pit traps, everywhere. The only case that you wouldn't use a tar pit trap, again, when I say tar pit trap, you can exchange that with the wooden floor spikes. The only place you wouldn't put that is in a box here, which is where we use the retractable floor spikes. Now, the reason we put retractable floor spikes in here and not, you know, a slowing trap or something is because, you know, let's say we did put a tar pit trap in here. When stuff gets launched in, it's gonna, you know, get up and be stood here for, you know, another 3 seconds. That's not fast enough for the traps to activate again, so we are better off putting a damage trap in, which does massive damage when they get in here, and, you know, that's just going to activate every time something gets in. So that's the reason we put a damage trap in there. We can move on to the ceiling traps. Ceiling gas trap, the only ceiling trap you're going to ever need, really. Tire drop traps can be good, because let's say if you put one here, the tires would drop down and then roll down a bit, but the gas trap just does more damage. You know, it's got the effect duration as well, so it's going to keep ticking on them as well. Ceiling electric fields, yeah, sure, they're good for a large area, but they just don't do a lot of damage. And the ceiling zap trap, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, the one that zaps like one enemy. It does massive damage, but obviously it only attacks one enemy. So the only gas trap you're gonna want, the only ceiling trap you're gonna want is the gas trap. So we literally just put this everywhere, pretty much. The only place you wouldn't put this is if you had. It's gonna be hard to give an example because I don't actually have an area. Definitely you want to put them down here at the spawn. This is, you know, this is where you're going to get your beginning damage on the enemies. But the only place you wouldn't want to put them is in missions. You can get ramps that are like less steep than this. You know, the ramps that take 2 tiles to go up. So basically it'd start there, come down and go to here. So at this point you couldn't put a ceiling there, because the ramp would be at about this height and you'd stop stuff from getting through, so stuff would just bash this. So you wouldn't put a ceiling there, you put it up there. Now that is when you wouldn't put a gas trap, because obviously it's too high up to put it. Wow. A tire drop trap would work perfectly there, but it's just not warranted enough for me to get a schematic for it, and I personally just don't use them. But if you have the schematic and you use the tire drop traps, that's when you'd use them, and you would use them when stuff is going up a ramp in general. Why am I stuck on the walls here? Like here, for example, you'd put your tire drops up there. So yeah, that's an explanation of where you put your traps. Hopefully you did find it useful. Hopefully, you know, it's given you a better understanding of where to put your traps, and, you know, hopefully you'll be able to build trap tunnels for yourself a lot better, at least, than before. Maybe you won't be an expert in it, but, you know, hopefully it'll have made some sort of difference. If you did like it and find it useful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see the future ones. Again, like I say in all of these, if you could share it with people you know that might need it. Obviously don't share it with people that know how to make trap tunnels, you know, there's no need for that. But if you know of any people that are newer to the game, it'll be very useful for them. But thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.